My wife said something the other day. I don't know if she read it as a meme or just a quote by someone, but it stuck in my head. Said that millennials created the safe space and Gen X created the mosh pit. I realize that it's more complicated than that, of course. I'm not going to get into different generations because I'm not a generationalist. Would that be the word? I'm not a generationalist, and I don't have anything against specific groups of people based on their age. However, I have seen some certain patterns unfold within the youth over the decades that I've researched. The rebellions in the 60s against the Vietnam War, protests in the 90s when I was younger, into the 2000s for logging, cutting down rainforests, save the whales, or as George Carlin says, save the bees, save the trees, save the whales, save the snails. And then he goes on to say, well, the Earth's not going anywhere, we are. And of course, the joke in there being that the irony is all the time we spend trying to save the planet, save species. Really, we're just trying to save ourselves. But today things have changed, and it just seems people are trying to save face more than anything else. The modern generation protests that, I should say, the modern protesters who protest things like climate change or big oil or, forest devastation are generally respectable groups, but there are some young people who decide to glue themselves to the highway or to deface paintings and then glue themselves to the wall or glue themselves to a Starbucks or whatever people are super gluing their hands to that week. Saying that it brings attention and awareness. And all of this is the issue isn't that people are protesting these things, it's that the way they're going about it seems to be very self righteous. The age of social media has changed the way that people do things. Now it's all about the selfies, the Instagram posts, and the look at me. In the past, you'd have to call the media down to look at your cause and see what it was worth and if it was even worth posting or broadcasting. And because of this, now everyone's voice is heard, which is good. But at the same time, a lot of young people seem to think that the real world operates like TikTok, and there are kids out there filming other kids get beat up at school, or uh, I'm not even, I really don't want to get into the discussion about how just crass and uncaring a lot of the younger people seem to be. But here's the irony in the topic, in the situation itself, is that many of these people can be so vile and spiteful, yet at the same time claim to have values protecting others. Now, this is something I hadn't seen before, something that I believe has really manifested over the last decade. That people think that wearing a ribbon or posting a hashtag is activism, and that you're defending somebody else's rights by, attacking people who you feel might have offended someone. And that's where the safe space comes in. The idea that anyone can have a safe space from criticism or from ridicule is ludicrous. And when I heard about this as being an issue in the colleges, I didn't take it too seriously because generally there's always a bunch of screaming Republicans about how bad the colleges are and how the kids are getting screwed over. But when the truth starts to really filter through and you see how bad it's actually become, you can't help but wonder, how are these kids going to function in the world when they grow up if they think they can run and hide from bad feelings? If they think that every office they work in, they're going to be able to set up a little panic room when they're not feeling well. I know these things aren't as common as people make them out to be, but they exist. They exist in plentiful, down in the tech bro community, if you will. There are some other worlds out there that just don't reflect the average workplace where it's get your shit together, get your job done, and go home. Yeah, but yeah, you get picked on a little bit. All of a sudden it's become some racial issue, or somebody says, "Hey, that's a nice dress," and all of a sudden it's become, you know, sexual harassment. Like this is where we're at right now in our society because people have become hypersensitive to people's comments and made assumptions about their intentions. And it is pretty silly when you really think about it. I don't I don't want to live in a world where there's hateful people. I don't want to live in a world where my climate is destroyed. I believe in a lot of the causes that young activists fight for. But as an adult human being with the wisdom that I've accrued in my 46 years, it seems that I can finally look back on some of my silly, beliefs when I was younger and realize that there are better ways to do things than to. Of course, I never stood out in the street and blocked traffic to protest. That's not my thing. But it's one thing to block traffic if you're protesting, some particular cause that has nothing to do with the climate. If there are literally protesters that go out and chain themselves to the highways across the highway in various countries and block traffic for hours to stop the burning of oil. And this is what really, led me to think that's the irony right there. That all that traffic sitting for hours is burning 10 times more gasoline than they would if you just let people go home. These people are aware that we have problems. All of the citizens are aware that we burn too many fossil fuels and that we would like to change and do things better. But then you ask people what their solutions are, and they don't even have one. Oh, wind and solar. Well, how do you manufacture these and transport them and replace them? It becomes this ludicrous circular argument. But the thing is, it's not based in any logic or facts anymore. People aren't even willing to discuss the data or look at numbers. There's no charts explaining how we can go from this to that. And there's a complete opposition to any nuclear power, which has made that part difficult. But, here we are. What's my point? All the activism, all that energy being poured into slowing down society for a minute, as if we haven't had plenty of time to think about these things. It's treating people like idiots and assuming the rest of us aren't aware of these things. But guess what? We have to pay the bills too. We can't all just stop working. When people are like, we just need to rebel by stop working. Well, how the hell are you going to do that? What are you going to do to pay your bills? It's easy to say if you have money. I think people need to really look through other people's eyes a little more. And that's a message to all people, all generations. This isn't just about the millennials or Gen Z or the upcoming generations, because my issue isn't with them. It's with the parents. Where are the parents in this situation? When are they going to step in and actually start telling their kids, no, this isn't true, and no, this isn't true? In a way of really explaining the world, we've let kids just believe whatever they want to believe, and it's led to some very complicated issues in society, and that's my take. I'm out. Thanks for listening. Be sure to visit me on my Patreon page if you'd like to donate and get more access to more stuff, different videos. And I also have a podcast called 15 Minute Free Thinking. You can find that on podcast places and then the regular old YouTube channel. Bye now.